This is a just in case the live stream doesn't work. We're still also reminding middle school students that middle school work start next week on September 9th. Middle school students interested from volleyball or running points from excuse me. Visit Rachel at the middle school office for more info. All senior photos, baby ads, and envelopes for the yearbook are due by Friday, October 23rd. No exception. Seniors should contact the school office or Ms. Anderson with questions. And lastly, for everyone, please remember to check in through the Grace portal the days that you are online. This does count as your attendance for the day, so make it a part of your morning routine. Thanks a lot, guys. I hope you guys have a great second day here on campus, and please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Gravity. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You see it? Okay. First off, you may or may not have noticed that there is craziness as regards to technology, at least in this classroom. So what I'm trying to do is simultaneously do a live stream, we'll see if it works, and a YouTube video in the event it doesn't. I'm going to try to do this for basically for one of my Euro classes and for one of my ancient classes every day, so that if the system, your notebook please, so that if the system continues to be tetchy, we will have a record of the lesson that you can use that will help you. So that is the first thing. Second thing is your textbooks. Your textbooks do not ever need to be brought to class. I didn't say this the other day, I'm saying it now. Leave your textbooks at home, where you do your work, where you study. Cover them. If I see them around uncovered, there will be problems as time goes on. You never need to have it here. Never. I never use textbooks in class, and if I do, I've got some extras here that we can use for the day. You don't need to be lugging those things around. Just bring them home, put them wherever you study, and try to make sure the dog doesn't eat it. So, let's see. We talked about tech, and we talked about texts. Let's talk about AP. Last night, I had a massive intuition. Remember I said that there would be changes because of the craziness of this year if I felt that those changes were warranted. Well, last night it occurred to me that they are. So, first of all, you still have until next Thursday at 3 p.m. to decide if you want to switch over from AP to Honors or from Honors to AP. But we're not doing any lunch meetings, not while we're on this AP schedule. Instead, what will happen is on Fridays, I will either do a lunch period length video lecture on things that AP students should know, or during the study lab time on Friday mornings, unless I can think of a better time, or unless one of you can suggest a better time, we will do a Zoom meeting if it's going to be a give and take seminar. So instead of having to join me for lunch starting next week, the first of these AP sessions will happen next Friday, September the 11th, 2020, a day that remembers a day that will live in infamy. So, do you have any questions about AP or about that? Yes?
So it's kind of on Fridays, honors.
Yes, and I should talk about Fridays too. Write this down. Fridays. Okay, this is what will happen most every Friday. I'm going to lecture to you for about the amount of time I would if you were here. That's all you do. You don't have to watch it during class time. You can if you want. I don't know when I'll get it up yet. Usually I have the videos uploaded. Last spring when I did videos, I had them uploaded by mid-morning. But what will happen is I'll be recording a video for European, for Honors European, for everyone, basically. And I expect you to view that. If you're an AP student, you get something in addition to above and beyond that. But yeah, expect to tune in and watch a video. You'll have to finish that video before the end of the weekend. You're expected to know what's in it, and it will be an integral part of the class. In other words, just as if you were here, or just as if you were at home, you're expected to watch this video. Expect it to be posted sometime between 8, that's probably too early, and noon, that's probably too late. It'll be posted on my YouTube and my Google Classroom at some point, God willing, between 8 and noon time on Friday. And what you're going to do is you're going to watch the video, and then what do I ask for whenever you watch one of my videos? Raise hands. You should know this. Call, yes.
That's the top comment back.
I want you to comment that you watched it, but further, since this is an actual video lecture that I expect you to understand, what I want is a significant comment. Either you checking with me or asking a question or reacting to what I taught you. So I will want you to analyze something yourself. So on Fridays, watch my video and you spend from 5 to 10 minutes responding. It doesn't have to be all writing. It has to be a thoughtful response. I will grade your response. If your response is, boy, Nazis are evil, that's a D or an F. If your response is a more nuanced approach to trying to figure out why anyone would willingly be a Nazi, where you actually go into what Hitler said, what Germany was like, the psychological appeal that Nazism had for many types of people, that's going to get a much better grade. So I'm giving you the option. You can ask a good question and then offer some commentary, maybe try to answer your own question with a speculation, or you offer a comment. In terms of length, the comment should be 2-3 paragraphs. They can be short or long, but 2 or 3 paragraphs long. That would be ideal. Yeah, boy, Nazis are evil would definitely be an F, because that's not even a single paragraph. It's a single line. Thank you for asking that, sir. Mr. Reagan. Any questions on that you're all going to be watching? Hopefully I'll have something worth seeing Friday morning. Okay. Let's see. Please take out your syllabus. Today we're going to do the fun part of going through the syllabus pack and class policies. And I realize that this can be as much fun as watching paint dry, as watching cars rust, as watching a snail race. Come on, Whitey! Get it! Get the other snail! Curly's going to beat Whitey. Snail racing, not the most exciting thing in the world for a human being. But we're going to go over this pack for a couple of reasons. First of all, a few things have changed. Second of all, it's important that we're all on the same page, that we understand how things are going to work. So, on the first page of the syllabus, which you can follow along with at home, you can see that there are the dates on this front page and on the second page listed by week for every major assignment. I do not give nightly homework except on very rare occasions. In a very rare occasion, we'll be talking about something or doing something, and I may ask you to write a couple of paragraph reaction. But that's an exception. That's not normal. What is normal is I give one assignment per week. That is, well, usually it's only one. That assignment is typically a chapter survey. And you've got a chapter survey due next week. So, chapter survey 12. You'll have to read Spielvogel 12, which is listed there by page number. It's about the Renaissance, which is the rebirth of the ancient knowledge into a new and Christian context. Let's go ahead through, and I will ask you to go all the way to the chapter survey sheet, which is horizontally formatted, and it says chapter survey, number, title. It's formatted horizontally, hamburger style. It's formatted widescreen, landscape rather than portrait. So hopefully you've all found where it says chapter survey, number, title, name, date, period at the top. So for the chapter survey you're going to do, you'd write 12 there. Then below where it says chapter survey, you'll see matching. I emailed each of you the Baker work. The Baker worksheets correspond to each of the chapters. So, in the emails I sent you, which we had some access problems, but then I was shown a way around them, you will find Baker chapter 12, and I think it's like pages 1 through 10 or 1 through 12 or something like that. The first few pages of the Baker outlines the Spielvogel chapter, restates the high points of the Spielvogel chapter in a couple of paragraphs. And then it begins it says that there are some thought questions, and then it begins the questions that you will answer. There are a series of matching questions where you match a historical name with a brief description. Number 1, 2, 3, all the way up to number 10. And all you do is you write the letter of the answer that best fits that name. So, if the name is, good modern figure, Napoleon Bonaparte, and you see as a description Corsican corporal who used France to try to conquer Europe and then the world, and that is answer D. Next to number 1, you would write D, as in Delta, in a capital letter. Why? Because it's much easier to read, and it's much more distinctive than a lowercase letter. So a capital letter. Whenever you're asked to do a letter answer, I recommend you always use caps. It's much easier to understand. After doing those 10, immediately after that in the Baker, are a series of 20 multiple choice questions. For example, the Protestant Reformation occurred in blank religion. Zoroastrian is A. Judaism is B. Buddhism is C. Islam is D. Christianity is E. And paganism is F. And as you should already know, but as you certainly will know after we go through this, the Protestant Reformation is a movement within the Christian faith. So you would write E for Christianity in that multiple choice question, which is number 1. You see, you've all done multiple choice and matching before. I'm just trying to be clear. Then there's a section where you fill in the blank. We never do that. It's stupid. But after that is a chronology where you place things in the order that they happened. For example, since you all took ancient history last year, presumably, did the Punic Wars happen before or after the fall of the Roman Republic? Did where did the life of Christ, of Yeshua Bar Joseph, occur in relation to those two events? And what you would do, and actually there are 7 events that you have to place in order, and you just give a quick, brief summation of the name. What you would do is say Punic Wars, Fall of Republic, Life of Christ. That is the order that those things happen. This section should take you, depending upon how well you read the chapter, or if you're like a lot of people who, instead of reading the chapter, decide they're going to read the questions and then cherry pick their answers from the text, that actually takes longer unless you have a certain kind of mind. This all is going to take you an hour, maybe more, until you get used to it. After you get used to this sort of thing, you'll be able to do it more quickly, and this part of the work will probably reduce in March, maybe in January, to something that takes you half hour, 45 minutes. But for now, budget an hour and a half for this part, and you should get it. Now we come to the opposed views section, which is the rest of the front of the sheet. Now, in your textbooks, in each and every chapter, God, this is exciting, isn't it? To study how to answer questions on a worksheet. In each and every section, there is an opposed views. Let's see if we can find it. This is going to be the colloquy between Zwingli and Luther. Marburg colloquy. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show it close, and you will see a sort of pinked out area on this page. Try to show it close up here. You will see a pinked out area on this page. And I'll show it to you as we go around. See, you can tell because it's pinked out. And it says at the top, opposed views. History is not really that complicated. Pretty straightforward thing, at least in terms of the information. So this is the opposed views section, I think, for chapter 13. But you get an idea. So opposed views. And what the opposed views section is all about is you get documents from the time. And what documents from the time offer is a perspective of people who lived at that time. Not going to be our perspective. It's going to be their perspective. And a historian can get good information from that. The opposed views section, it's like Jackson J. Spielvogel did in organizing the opposed views section. That's a humorous question, but it is a question. What kind of documents do you think he chose? Yes?
Probably chose documents that definitely showed the local bias or the audience at the time, showed their point of view, and it might not be something that matches up with points of view today, so it's clearly...
You are in the ballpark. That is a near miss. That's a good answer. But the only thing that prevents it from being perfect is how these documents relate to one another, because there are several documents. So, in an opposed views section, what do you think the documents would do? Would they tend to agree or disagree with one another?
Documents.
Yeah. I was about to shout Eureka at the top of my lungs and bounce around, but you were nice enough to offer a thoughtful answer without it even getting rolled on, so I appreciate that by not trying to startle your breakfast up, disturb your digestion. Yes, the opposed views section has people from those times speaking about the same issue from different points of view. Now, how do you do this section? Well, you will note that there are 3 spaces. In the case of chapter 13, or whatever the Luther Zwingli Marburg colloquy is, there are only 2 documents. So for opposed views, you're going to do the first document that appears in the first slot, the second document that appears in the second or middle slot, and if there is a third document, you will do a third document that appears in the third slot. But since there isn't, you'll pick another document from the chapter to do. Your choice. So what do documents look like in the chapter? Let's find one. Okay, here we have a section of page that is parchment color. Parchment, which is the pages of a book that used to be made from flesh of animals. Parchment, leather book pages. And this indicates a document that has nothing to do with the opposed views section, but that has to do with the stuff that we talk about in the chapter. You pick one that interests you. I don't care which one. Just clearly indicate which one you decided to pick. So once you have your documents, the 2 opposed views and the extra document, or the 3 opposed views depending upon the chapter, once you have that, what do you have to do? Well, there are 4 sections: context, content, critique, and just before critique, vocabulary. I sort of indicate on this sheet what context, content, what they are. So let's look at context. Context is, who's the author? What's the place and time the thing was written? What is the bias of the author? What is the audience the author is intending to communicate to? And what is the author's intent? So let's say I have a document from the 1970s, Americana. It's a poster of a great white shark, giant and outsized, swimming directly up towards a beautiful swimmer on the surface, completely oblivious to the existence of the shark. And right at the bottom of the poster is the word Jaws. Now, do any of you know what I'm talking about when I say Jaws and I describe that poster? Okay? There was a famous horror movie from the 70s involving a shark with, you got it, that ate people off the coasts of Long Island. So, who's the author? Let's say for a moment I designed the poster. The poster is the document. So you put my name. Place and time. Well, Hollywood, California, 1975, I think it came out. Bias. I guess the bias of the poster would be that fear sells. That if you can scare people, they may be interested in the feeling of fear and may go to your movie. So my bias is to create a graphic design for my poster that's going to elicit fear and curiosity in the people who see the poster. Other people might have a bias that is rationalistic. This is fear sells or emotionalistic. Now, bias can also mean political. For example, the president visits this town in Wisconsin, Kenosha, that has had a series of riots over the last few weeks, and people with a bias towards liberalism, progressivism, and Democrats say, how dare he go to that place? He has no business being there. After all, he and his anti-BLM, potentially racist ideas are part of the problem that the protesters are protesting against. Whereas a person with conservative or Republican bias might obviously say he's the president of the United States going to an area that has been damaged, not by a natural disaster, but by people. And because it was damaged by people, a politician who has control over police forces and military forces and has a duty to protect the people might very well have a role to play in trying to settle things out, just like the mayor of Kenosha or the governor of Wisconsin or other various political and police officials might have too. Bias is the hardest thing, in my experience, for students at the sophomore level to pick up. Because on the one hand, I think bias is so obvious. It's not subtle at all in some cases. On the other hand, we're afraid of being judgmental. God, our society doesn't like judgmental people. However, identifying the bias, the predisposition, the prejudices, the prejudgments. Prejudice isn't, by the way, a bad word, not in every context. Prejudice is a prejudgment that you make. For example, a prejudgment might be that I'd rather drive to school than walk to school if I have a 3-mile journey. You have a prejudice towards the motor vehicle because you think it's going to be better for you and save you time. However, if your goal is to get in shape, especially for long-distance events, maybe walking is worth the time because you'll help yourself get good exercise. So what is the prejudgment? That's bias. We'll go into that in detail, but you are expected to identify. Who is the document for? Is it for a bunch of scholars in a university? Is it for a king or a pope or a bishop or some other kind of political leader? Is it for a general? Is it for a bunch of soldiers slavering for battle? Or is it for civilians? Who is the audience? Well, in the case of the Jaws poster, the audience are American moviegoers in 1975. And the intent is to sell movie tickets, to get people wondering, that's an unusual thing. I want to see what happens. Which is kind of sick, because when giant shark approach tasty morsel of food in the form of a human female, it's going to be ugly and it's going to be bloody. But people do slow down as they drive by accidents sometimes. So anyway, that's the context. If you want to list the context out, just following my thing, you can do that. You can do it in the terms of a numbered list or bullet points. Just make sure you address all of these things, all of them that you can. In some cases, you'll be able to get exact dates. In others, you'll be able to get general time periods when it came from. Okay, content. Restate the document in your own words. That's easy enough, isn't it? Well, it can be once you get used to it. If, for example, we're talking about any document that describes something, like a newspaper article that will describe an earthquake, or that will describe a disease. Okay, we've got an article on disease, on the CCP virus or COVID-19, call it what you will, and on the efficacy of masks and other measures like social distancing. So we've got an article. And we've worked out the author, the place, the time, all the bias, all that stuff. Now what? Now we've got to summarize what the article says in our own words. Now you can use a quote from the article as long as it is a majority of what you write. But if the article basically says, trust the WHO, trust the CDC, trust science, whatever that is, and better safe than sorry, if that's the basic point, then say that, and also say what points are raised in favor of that thesis. So you are summarizing the article. I don't know if you've done this before. I assume you've done it at least in some ways. But this is an art in and of itself. It's a distinct type of writing. Taking a large and complex argument filled with odd terms and strange details and summarizing the heart of what it means. That's what I want you to learn to do. Any questions on context or on content? Vocabulary. There are going to be at least a couple of terms in each document that you discover that you don't know. They may be proper names, they may be old-fashioned words that aren't used. You will write the name of the word or term and a brief description. You've got enough space to do 2. I expect you to have 2 per document. Name, whatever it is, the word that you don't understand, and a brief description of what it means. Finally, critique. What do you think of it? You are expected to react. Why do you agree or disagree with the author's stance, the author's choice of evidence, the author's reasoning, the author's sensibilities of how the world works, the biases? Now, I don't want just personal, I don't like this guy, he speaks in big. No, I want a reasoned reaction. It doesn't have to be, well, on the one hand, I like this, but on the other hand, I don't like that. I would like you to react. If you are reading an article by Alfred Rosenberg, who, despite the Jewish sounding name, was actually the master theoretician of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, and he was a rabid anti-Semite, hater of Jews. And I give you a document that is an excerpt from one of his anti-Semitic articles. I don't just want you to say, I hate anti-Semites. I want you to take what he wrote and react to it favorably, negatively, whatever. That's your choice, thoughtfully. And I want you to fill the space. In fact, I recommend that you write small enough so that you can say something worth saying in the space. Not so small that I need a magnifying glass to read it, but small enough so that you can say something worth saying. Now you might say, oh, you just want us to write a certain amount. Yeah, I do. And I'm not ashamed of that. Here's why. Not all answers are the same, and the size of the answer does matter. It's like a meal. If you're hungry for a big old country breakfast and somebody gives you tea and toast, that's all, you're going to be disappointed because you wanted bacon and eggs and fruits and coffee or juice or both, and any number of other things that go with a big old country breakfast in your mind. I want a certain scale of detail. I want a certain amount of reasoning. That's why I made the boxes the size they are, so that you can say something worth reading. So do not get wrapped up with the idea, well, I said something interesting in 3 words. No, I want a certain sized answer. And I will be grading on the size of your answer as well as the content of your answer. And what you will do is with the opposed views, you'll get a sense of how 2 or 3 people at the time viewed the same issue. Any questions? Next page. And that sort of means you flip over the next page. And on the next page, you will see space for 3 essays. These are not normal essays. I expect that most of you throughout your education have been given an essay question and the opportunity to offer a completely free-range answer. And that gives you scope for your creativity and your insights to put together a really interesting answer, and that's wonderful if the goal is self-expression. My goal is to teach you how to write a solid historical essay. And every historical essay has a few components. So I have reverse engineered a historical essay into its component parts, and that is what you will address. You will note, in the Baker worksheets, there are 2 groups of 8 essays in each chapter. There are essays from Questions for Critical Thought, and there are essays from Analyzing Primary Source Documents. You have 3 essays to write. 2 of them must be from the Questions for Critical Thought, 1 of them from the Analyzing Primary Source Documents. And the square on the upper left of each essay is where you put the number, the essay number. You can choose among the 8 essays from each section which ones you want to answer. I want to give you an opportunity to choose to answer something that interests you. If you have a great interest in military affairs but not much interest in social history, or vice versa, I want you to have the opportunity to choose an essay that speaks to your interests and your knowledge. So you get to pick 2 of 8 questions for critical thought, 1 of 8 analyzing primary source documents. Now you got 4 things to answer: thesis, rationale, evidence, and significance. Thesis, rationale, evidence, and significance. Okay, I'm going to pick a question from ancient history because, again, you all should have thought about this if you took ancient history last year. The question is, what was the critical factor in the fall of the Roman Republic? What was the critical factor in the fall of the Roman Republic? Now, I'm going to want you to have a thesis, which is going to guide your answer. It is going to be the goal that you are aspiring towards by answering the question with a definite answer. I don't want rambling, I want a thesis. But I wouldn't necessarily write the thesis first. I might think about the rationale. The rationale is a logical argument supporting your thesis using reason. Rationale, reason, same root word. By the way, you can write notes on this. So, thesis is the overarching conclusion that you're arguing. You could write that down. Rationale is the logic and reasoning that you're going to employ. I would start many of my essays with evidence. Evidence, in this case, is examples from history. So what evidence is there about the fall of the Roman Republic? Well, for me, a number of things stand out. The assassination of Gaius and Tiberius Gracchus, the Gracchi. The rise of Gaius Marius and private armies. The rise of Lucius Cornelius Sulla as dictator for life. The first triumvirate between Caesar, Crassus, and Pompey. Very good. The Civil War between the first triumvirs. The second triumvirate, which is Mark Antony, Lepidus, and Octavian. And then this final civil war that brings Octavian/Augustus to supreme power. So that's a bunch of evidence, and you can just list it. Here's my thesis and rationale in answer to that question. The leaders didn't take power. The Romans gave it to their leaders. The leaders didn't take power. The Roman people gave power to their leaders. For me, the critical moments are early on. Here's what I would say in rationale. When two tribunes of the plebs, who have the power of veto and the power of being inviolate, are publicly assassinated, and it's obvious that the assassins are prominent clients of Optimate senators, political opponents of these tribunes. We have political assassination of people who you can't even touch when they're acting in the course of their public duty. And they're killed. And no one pays for it. None of the senators who ordered the attacks were put on trial. And in fact, finding any of the actual culprits and putting them on trial was scarce. Most of the people who participated in, and none of the people, and all of the people who ordered the assassinations of the Gracchi, they all got away with it. And the people let it happen. At no point did they rise up. At no point did they elect different officials. At no point did they take to the streets. They let it happen. Then Gaius Marius, like an earlier day Bill Gates or Elon Musk, decides that the state needs an army to fight the invading Teutons, Cimbri, and so he raises a private army. That would be like Bill Gates buying a tank division, or Elon Musk buying an air wing or a missile battery. And again, the Senate and people of Rome do nothing because they're afraid. Because Gaius Marius' private army is better organized, better led, and better equipped than any of the armies of the Senate and people of Rome. The third point is that by the time of Augustus, the The Romans were so sick of civil war that they wanted the strong man to take care of them. And that after the Punic Wars, they wanted the strong man to give them welfare, because slaves had destroyed the economy for poor free men. Now, all of that can be wrapped up. You don't have to say all of it. You don't have room to say all of it. But I tried giving you a fulsome answer, and you can pick and choose things from what I just said, reasoning out that these events were significant, and that the Roman people let it happen, and in fact, they made it happen. They went from taking care of themselves, with all the fear involved in that, being taken care of by Big Daddy Caesar and Augustus, and that is why the Republic fell. Why does it matter to us? And this is what I would say for critique. You will see the critique at the end. Let's see. Significance, not critique. Significance. What is the significance of this? Why write about this stuff other than to please some old history teacher? You write about this particular subject for this reason. Who's the American Republic based on? Who did our founding fathers base our Constitution on? Was it Athens? No. Our founders had contempt for Athenian democracy because of its instability. They based us on the Roman Republic. It's not an accident that courthouses and other public buildings look like Roman temples. It's not an accident that we're called Rex Publica in the United States, just as the Romans were called Rex Publica, for the people are king. And if the Roman Republic, upon whom we are based, was susceptible to people growing weary of the responsibilities of freedom, it can happen to us. And if we're not careful, the American people will find freedom too difficult and the chaos too much, and they will ask for some big daddy government to come in, take over, and take care of them like they were children. And you will kiss your freedoms bye-bye, because at that point you will be wards of the state, and you will be the ruled. That's an example of how to answer one of these essays. At this point, what I would focus on if I were you, were answering an essay that you know something about, but that you think that you have an opinion about. Have some evidence, have a good rationale, have a clear thesis, and have an honest and thoughtful reaction. If you do that for all three of these essays, you'll be fine. Now, I told you that the multiple choice matching and ordering things phases of this unit survey, of this chapter survey, will take you an hour and a half. The opposed views documents at first probably take you a couple of hours. And the essays will take you at least 3 hours. So we're talking 5, 6.5, 7 hours. That's a lot of time. But it is your only assignment that this week, aside from getting some signatures, which come due next week. So I recommend that you budget your time so that you have 6 or 7 hours to do this. This and this alone. Now, what will happen, and what always happens, is as you become used to this, you will calibrate your efforts. And again, by the time of January or March, you can do what took you 7 hours in September in 3 or 4 hours. And you'll still do a good job. So, that is a unit survey. Honors and AP students will do this unit survey, nothing else. I am not giving specialized AP essays at this point. I am not giving any specialized work. What I want you to do with Chapter 12 is everyone master the basic format. Now, are there any questions that you happen to have about the chapter survey? Again, let's go back to the front page. The front page says you got a chapter survey due in week 2, September 8th and 9th. In week 3, chapter survey 13 on the Reformation and religious warfare. 14 and 16. We skipped 15 during Unit 1. So you're going to do a lot of these. And at first, you will suffer because this is a lot of work and it's difficult. But you will improvise, adapt, and overcome. You will learn how to do this work well and quickly. That will help you in the future. You can also come talk to me if you have questions during study lab. That's one of the things study lab is for, to ask teacher questions. For now, just try to do the Chapter 12 survey and also get your class policy signature in next week if you haven't done so already. I had falsely indicated that the class policy signature needed to be turned in today or tomorrow. That was my mistake, and I apologize for the confusion. It's due next Tuesday or Wednesday. No questions? Any questions? Any questions of any kind? Then we're done. Thank you for those of you at home. Again, you can email questions or just bring them in tomorrow, and we'll talk. Have a good day. You can talk quietly among yourselves.